Brilliant, cheers Mo. Alright folks, thanks very much for coming. Save that, you may want to hold off on them. So my name's Stephen Limmer. I'm an Agile consultant, so I do a bit of Scrum Mastering, a bit of Agile coaching. I like flitting between the two roles because it gives me it gives me either team views or it gives me a bit of a higher level view on how organisations work. And so I've been in the tech industry for about 10 years. I've worked in different areas of the industry. I've covered off mostly government, but I've worked in finance, I've worked in e-commerce. And I hear a lot of people and I see a lot of people going for Agile adoption. But many people's versions of this, it just differs. Why do they start with an Agile adoption? Well, because simply the old world doesn't work. The old world, basically, the reign of Prince 2, the old waterfall. Basically, the waterfall was a bunch of gated stages of how to deliver software. So it starts off with a project initiation. You have a bunch of people in a room gathering requirements, talking to each other. They build out the requirements, then they throw it over to some architects and they design the solution. All good so far. Then it gets thrown over the gate into the build phase. The developers get a hold of it. They have to interpret somebody else's version of somebody else's version without actually having a meaningful conversation. Then it gets thrown over the wall to the tester. I used to be that tester. That was how I started my career in software. And the software tester ends up being that person who gets beat up quite a bit. You end up getting this as well. These endless test cycles at the very end of project phases. You get your system integration testing, your user acceptance testing, non-functional testing, final acceptance testing, and then just people get pissed off with it and just release it. Usually, then at that point, we get a validation that our assumptions that were made possibly 6 months, maybe even 18 months previous, with one conversation with one person, we get to validate that, and usually doesn't work. The assumptions have changed. So this was obviously not a great way of working. 2001, a group of software people got together and said, we're going to do this better. We looked at the old stuff, the processes, the tools, the documentation, the negotiation of contracts, following the plan, and we thought, well, let's get something better. So we thought individuals and interactions, working software, customer collaboration, responding to change, all of these things over the old world. The old world stuff has some importance, but the new stuff is the way to go. But as I said, I've been around a number of organisations. I've seen it done well and I've seen it done badly. And here's some of the things that I see getting done pretty badly. This story points. All right, so I'll stick my hand up. I like story points. I like using them, but I like using them well. What I see being done badly is, I'll explain story points if you're not familiar with it. Story points are used as a way of extrapolating away from estimation and time. So normally, in the old way, you would have given time estimates for pieces of work, and usually that was out by a massive degree, because developers are crap at estimating. Whenever you use story points gives you a realm of complexity, and it's not so much a case of, oh, I'm gonna do this in 3 hours or I'm gonna do this in 2 days. It's a case of, I estimate this to be a point. And we use things like Fibonacci scales, so 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. And the higher it goes, the more complex it gets, so therefore the more difficult it is to deliver. The issue isn't with story points, the issue is with management looking at story points and assessing and measuring, especially if you're in groups of software. So if you're doing larger scale Agile, you're doing numbers of development teams working together, they all have their different ranges. But whenever you get project managers and program managers looking at these, they start measuring, they start assessing, and they start creating up facts like developers can deliver 1.5 story points per sprint. Or this team can do X, this team can do Y. Why is there a difference here? And when you get into that, you get into a whole world of pain. JIRA. So this is now the de facto tool for Agile development for managing backlogs. But the problem again here isn't with the tool. The tool itself is reasonably good. The tool is misused because people say, we're Agile, we're using JIRA. JIRA's problem is there's twofold. Number one, it's where stories go to die. Basically, everybody batches up all of their work, throws it into JIRA, and it never gets pulled. You end up having this humongous backlog that whenever you go through refinement, nobody actually thinks, should I kill this? No, just stay. We'll keep it there. We'll use it. And it never does get used. And you end up with just this massive amount of rubbish sitting in the backlog. The big problem with JIRA I have is whenever it's because it's endlessly configurable. And because it's endlessly configurable, you can create endless reports. And managers love reports. And whenever you've got loads of reports, you get the correlation. You get the looking at them, measuring the teams, seeing who's doing what and who's not doing what significantly. And in the worst instance I've seen billing applications tied to JIRA so that actual customers are getting billed directly from JIRA and customers are seeing what stories are being done by what developers. Therefore they can measure this, and this is another mechanism for beatings. Not good. And finally, this SAFE. So Scaled Agile Framework is what SAFE is. SAFE, again, its principles are sound. It's a good way of getting big organizations to work in a slightly more collaborative way. The problem is they don't. You get to the top level, you have the portfolio. The portfolio is run by your executives, your senior managers, and enterprise architects. The second level is your program level. You have your solution architects, your product managers, and this brand new role that's been SAFE accredited and costs a fortune, release train engineers. But you can only have a release train engineer and a SAFE implementation, which also costs you money in accreditation. And then thirdly, you get the product teams. The product teams get a batch of work that gets handed to them by these two tiered silos at the top. They sort of choose how they get to do it, but realistically, they're stuck in a program and they have to deliver, and then they get a bone thrown to them in a thing called innovation sprints, which is supposed to be picking the work that they actually want to do, but it really means fixing your technical debt that has been accrued. So yeah, not great. It's not a good way, and it's not the optimal. Realistically, if you're talking about scaling agile, you're not scaling agile. You're scaling delivery. Agile is a set of principles. It's not. You can't scale a set of principles. You can't scale a mindset. It's scaling delivery. But people forget about this. And why? So basically, we forget about all of the good stuff that was called out in the manifesto, and we're stuck in the world of processes and tools. This is common. I see this all the time as a coach, as a scrum master, and it's very frustrating whenever people blame agile for their problems. It's not agile. It's these folk. And again, I'm a manager. I'll stick my hand up. No problem. The problem with management is lack of training, lack of actual training. Whenever you become a manager, it's because you've probably reached the zenith of where you've gone in your technical career or whatever else you've done, and you've hit a ceiling, and you think, no, it's time to move on. I want to progress. So you move into management, and management training is either crap or non-existent. You're stuck in you just don't have the resources to actually understand that your job is not working with software. Your job is not working with these very complicated things. Your job is working with people who are complex, and that is really, really challenging for people who are not used to this. And therefore, they fall into old patterns. And unfortunately, some of the worst things that they've got, some of the worst management theory comes from the old days, and yet is still prevalent today. So this is Frederick Taylor. He is the founding father of scientific management, and unfortunately the Taylorist principles were written in 1910 and are still seen as golden throughout industry, not just tech, but many industries. So some of the principles are pretty sound. So science, not rule of thumb, that's not a bad thing. That means qualify everything with data. Harmony, not discord. You're working with people, right? Cooperation, not individualism. So if you're working with teams, cooperate. Great. Maximum output in place of restricted output. This is my problem. I don't like this. This was written in 1910 under observation of bricklayers. So Taylor was observing bricklayers. Bricklayers were under strict orders by their unions to only lay a certain quota of bricks per day. Taylor incentivized them, offered them rewards to lay more bricks, maximize their output, and then to reach their greatest efficiency and prosperity. So this is where management by reward, management by carrot and stick became a popular thing, and it's still about today. It's endemic through not only our technical industry, it's endemic through many industries. It's endemic in schooling. This is Deming. So Deming is the guru of management of the 20th century, and he recognised that this grading, this assessing, this reward and extrinsic motivation was a damaging way of working. He called it the forces of destruction. He had this to say about it. And for me, the key here is crushing out joy in learning, joy on the job, and innovation. By being rewarded, by being graded, by being assessed, you're not actually working to your potential. You're working to a motivator, a simple motivator. And it just is not the right way. So how do we get beyond this? How do we go from the carrot and the stick? How do we go from bonuses? How do we go from rewards, assessment? How do we go from our end of year reviews? How do we go against being merited against our peers? And how do we get to a point where we're actually working for the joy of working? Intrinsically motivation. So I'm going to do a bit of a sell here. If you're going to read one book, read this book. It's amazing. Dan Pink basically assessed he looked at all of the studies around intrinsic motivation, motivation from the heart, motivation for the joy of learning, and he distilled it into this book, and he gave a load of good pointers. But basically, there's three key elements to it. Mastery. Mastery is learning your craft, getting to be good at what you do, and for the joy of doing it. And that is, there's a metric. It's something like around 10,000 hours invested in your craft. You become masterful at it. Autonomy, being able to pick and choose the work that you enjoy doing, and then finally purpose, the driver that gets you up in the morning to go and do your job. Yep, some of us will do it because we get a wage, but that's not the most joyful thing in the world. I know that I have to jump out of bed in the morning feeling good about what I want to do, and for me that's the purpose. That's the clarity that I need. Deming again. So Deming for me again, as I say, he's the guru of management theory. He looked at all of this. He looked at all of these drivers, and he knew that intrinsic motivation was the way to go, but he knew that it had to be done in a safe environment by driving out fear. It wasn't just Deming wasn't the only person who's done this. So Google have done the same thing. Back in 2012, Google launched this thing called Project Aristotle. Project Aristotle was basically it was an assessment of all of the teams across Google. So they used about 200 teams and judged them against what made them highly efficient, what made them effective. And what they found, they trialed a couple of things. They thought, we'll put all of our high performers into one team, or we'll see if the team that enjoys the crack the most, we'll see if they're the best. But basically what they found without fail was teams that felt safe to take risks, they felt safe to question things, they felt safe to actually go and experiment. They were the really effective teams. And so this became a founding thing for them. And then this brings me to where I'm going with my talk on Modern Agile. So Modern Agile is a movement. It's been around for a little while. And it's basically, it's accepting that the old way of doing things is gone. The original manifesto was written in a time period where there was a context change. Modern Agile is written now in the time where we do have good software delivery. It's written, so back in 2001 when the original Agile manifesto was written, there was no such thing as continuous delivery. There was no continuous integration. We didn't have things like Git, we didn't have things like Jenkins. We certainly didn't have cloud. So these are real key enablers. Back then, launching a bit of software from the point there was a discussion about the requirements to the point where it was delivered in 2 weeks, that was a big achievement. Now we have like one button click pushes into the production. So Modern Agile accepts that technology is good, but it accepts that people still need to work as people. So what have they done? They've set out 4 key principles. Number 1, make people awesome. Whenever you hear this, you're like, really? It's a bit American, right? But it is a bit cheesy. But mastery, purpose, autonomy. This is what they're really saying. Make people awesome by giving them the mastery, the purpose, and the autonomy to go and do what they want. Deliver value continuously. So we've got, as I say, we've got the tech to do it. But if you're making people awesome, you're going to make your customers awesome as well. Deliver something fun for them. Deliver something good. Get the value out there. You can do that by experimenting and learning rapidly. So we have brilliant product management principles. We've got good service design principles. We've got user-centered design's been around for a long time. Lean UX is a big thing. Leverage all this good stuff. Learn, experiment, test your hypotheses, get them out there, learn and bring it back. And again, deliver back, deliver value. But you can't do this without the underpinnings of psychological safety. So it is a prerequisite. And how do we get there? Well, number one, you need to be safe yourself. So if you feel safe, you can do good things. Ask yourself 3 questions. Number one, are you treated with respect and dignity by people you encounter in your workplace? 2, are you given the education, the training and the tools to do your job well? And number 3, somebody gives you a little bit of praise or acknowledgement that the work that you're doing adds value. If you're going to answer these honestly, saying yes, this happens for me this happens for me on a daily basis, you're in a safe place. So we work with people, right? So let's look at how we can make working with other people safe. Feedback is a massive mechanism for this. I can't stress this enough. Feedback is super important. There are loads of ways of giving feedback, and that's another talk for another time. But whenever you're essentially, the main thing about giving feedback is framing it. So make your preferences for feedback known. For me, for example, I like direct feedback. I like criticism, and I like getting it in the moment whenever something's happened. I like to learn that I've done something wrong and that I can make a change. That is my personal preference. If I'm giving praise, I kind of go, I feel a wee bit cringy about it. But I'll thank you for it anyway, because obviously you've gone ahead. I've done something you've appreciated, and you want to make me know that. So I will be absolutely grateful for it. Feed forward though. Don't anticipate giving feedback. Don't be waiting around for a time period. Like, I mean, most people wait until annual reviews or quarterly reviews or whatever else crap that people do in management. Tell people that you actually appreciate what they're doing, or tell people what they're doing needs corrected. Just feed forward. Be honest about it. Be quick about it. And then obviously receiving feedback. Somebody has gone out of their way to tell you that, to give you some corrective advice on how to operate. So be grateful for them. They're actually doing you a favour. It may not seem it at the time, but they are. And there's 2 things you can do. First of all, paraphrase it back to them so that you show that you've understood the key point that they want to get to you. And secondly, be grateful. Say thanks. We work in teams, right? So how do we work in a team together? So safety is important in the team. Share your hobbies, your skills and interests. This really is powerful. I've worked in a team before where we were really, really poor at communicating with each other. We were in a bit of a lull. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was working in Bristol in the DVSA department, and my team had been through a bit of a bad time. The project was pretty tough, and so there was no commonality amongst the team. They were not in a happy place. So one day I thought, look, I'll get a bit of energy going, and got everybody to stand up. I had a little ball and I was tossing it around them. Just said, right, come on, tell me what's your favourite movie? And we got a bit of engagement going. We had a product owner who was in the room with us, and he had, at this point, he had completely bought out. He was not interested. And he saw us doing this, and he was like, oh, I want to get involved. And he was all about this. So he learned a little bit about the team. We learned a little bit about him, and as a team, we learned about each other. We had a pretty diverse team. So there was folks from Northern Ireland, there was folks from England, and there was folks from Poland in this team. Plus our product owner who was from Glasgow. So it was pretty cool. We broke down some good barriers, and it worked really well. And after that, we actually worked as a really effective team. And it was something as simple as just having that bit of commonality. learn. We work in diverse teams. I mean, I'm working in the most diverse team I've ever seen at the minute. I'm in the Ministry of Justice digital team, and I've got content designers, I've got a service designer, I've got front-end engineers, I've got a user researcher, I've got a business analyst, and I've got a bunch of developers as well, and a product manager. We've all from different backgrounds, we've all different experiences, but we can all learn from each other crucially. I love hearing about user research, for example. I think there's nothing more exciting than hearing validated feedback on our assumptions. And we can learn from each other every day. And it's the same, even developers working together and pairing up. I see that with both the front end and the back end teams, and I also see it with people actually pairing up with the researchers as well to understand what they're going out and learning. It's powerful. It'll break down barriers, but it also makes it a safe space to make them to change your assumptions. Find common ground, okay? I mean, we talked about sharing hobbies. That's one way of building empathy, but find commonality and purposes within a team. For me, that is actually setting out things like a definition of done within the team. So the team decides what done looks like. So what is your good? Things like setting out coding principles that the team can all adhere to, and having a team charter for how we want to work with each other, and setting out things like feedback preferences and how we like to be talked to. These are really, really powerful mechanisms for helping out working in a team. This point is crucial. Okay, so if you're agile, you're doing retrospectives regularly. If you're not doing retrospectives regularly, you're not agile. It's simple. That is it. Retrospectives are super important. It's the one way of getting continuous learning into a team on a regular basis. And the way to make it safe is by setting out the prime directive. The prime directive basically is an absolution. So if you've been through a tough time when you're working, or there's some serious problems that you need to establish and you need to get a resolution, setting out this charter that what we've learned, what we uncover as we learn, was done by our best endeavours. It sets a safe tone. And then finally, for managers and leaders, there's a few things we can do. So number one, framework is learning. If you set out learning problems rather than directives, people will be more likely to be more curious about finding a good solution. The military do this really well. They call it mission command. And so mission command's pretty cool. It's basically, here's the mission we hope you to achieve. But they let the team set the strategy and the tactics for achieving that mission. So bringing that back to what we do, as a leader, set out a problem, let your team go and uncover it. They're probably smarter than you. They know what they're doing more than you will. Let them figure it out. Vulnerability and fallibility is key. I don't know how many people I've worked for who feel that by not showing vulnerability means that they're tough. Great. What's that mean? It means you're cold and aloof. Nobody actually wants to share anything with you because you're not showing fallibility, you're not showing empathy. I mean, I make mistakes all the time. I'll take it on and I'll share it with the team when it happens. And they do the same thing back. We make it a safe space to make mistakes. Turn that into a learning problem again. Be curious, right? How many times have you been in a position where something bad has happened? There's been a massive outage or something like that, and we're having technical problems. And how many times have you seen managers running in, flapping like a headless chicken? Basically, loads, right? Why? It doesn't help anything. In fact, it makes it worse. It's like seeing a fire and running with a can of petrol. You know, you're not going to solve any problem by doing this. If you're curious about it, try and find it, diagnose the why. Frame all the questions again as how, what can we do? Be calm. That helps. Encourage diversity. Diverse teams work well. Teams that are not diverse tend to become a little bit of an echo chamber and self-validate. So then they're not really keen to go out to the wider market and learn. If you've got a diverse viewpoint, it's great, bring it in. And to help that, you need to also normalize conflict, because if you bring in, if you normalize your conflict, if you make it safe to have conflicting opinions, then again, as I say, it becomes normal, and diversity becomes a good thing. I say wide range of opinions will reflect the wider range of people that you're going to be touching with the work that you do. And then finally, the key point, as a leader, as a manager, working with people, you are a person. Be a person. Don't be a dick. Quite simple. This is, if you're not a dick, if you're working with people, they'll work with you. Thank you.
Okay, we've time for a few quick questions.
Yeah.
Anybody has one?
So do you think that being in a job where your manager treats you like shit is an important part of learning, or should this be the normal approach?
If your manager's treating you like shit, go and get a new job. There's plenty out there.
What if all the jobs?
No, they're not all like that. They're definitely not all like that. Just some managers are dicks. That's quite simple. That was one of the key points about I'm trying to make. It's that management training's crap. Some people have come through from being working as a developer, for example, and they've hit the top of where they can go. They've hit and so they self-promote into management, and then they become Peter Principle, where they've promoted themselves out of effectiveness. Then they don't have that kind of training to actually work with people. People skills are just non-existent for so many people. It's one of those things. Just there are better jobs out there. Go for it.
Say, as somebody who's made a manager about a week ago, I completely agree with you.
Shoot.
How will you handle agile practice if you are, say, a mid-level management, which you need to deal with your internal team expectation, and you also need to handle senior management expectation, but dealing with other teams?
Yeah, that's a toughie. I mean, like, it's more. It is literally just manage expectations. You get what you need to do is get your senior stakeholders involved in some of your ceremonies. If you're using Scrum, for example, if you're using a 2-week sprint cycle, whenever you've got something to show, get them involved and let them see. Look, we're getting there slowly, and it's not all about getting things done rapidly, because most people's assumptions is Agile is getting things done faster. It's not. It's about a mindset shift. It's about collaboration. So just bring them in, collaborate with them. I hear you. It's hard. It is difficult.
Do you think there should be a team size where Agile just can't manage anymore?
Yeah. Anything beyond about 10 people is unmanageable. If you've got a team of 9, beyond 9, 10 people, you've got X amount more conversations that you need to manage. You've got X more expectations that need to be managed, and it's harder. It's like the core group is about 8 to 9 people is where you get your maximum efficiency in teams.
Right.
So when you talk there about grading being dangerous, even when we took it all the way back to primary school.
Yeah.
What are you advocating there? That everybody in the team should be paid equally, or
I wouldn't say it's not about equalising the pay. It's just about assessment against your peers, because all it does is it's enforcing false competition effectively. If the pay thing, well, yeah, if we were all paid equally, that'd be amazing. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. I think there are better ways of assessing people. It's not so much assessing your people. It's just giving them the training and giving them the freedom to go and work with what they want to work with. If that's not possible in the organisation, find where they can be most useful. Does that answer your question or not? Because I kind of know it's a bit of a fudge.
I don't know. I mean, we probably all know that there can be very significant differences in performance between individuals and teams.
100%. But find actually why. You've got some people who are always driven to do really well. You've got some people who are happy to cruise. But just again, it's having the empathy, have the conversation with them, and understand: is that what you want to do? Are you happy cruising, or what can I do to make things better for you? What tools can I give you to get you to a higher level of performance?
Okay. I think we're out of time now.
No problem.
But just to stay on the topic, or on the theme, the
Right.
Relevant then.
Cool. Right. Thank you.